That's essentially what happened with Kit Bevan that time back last breakaway.
Yes.
And we were live.
Yes, we are. We're running a few minutes late. Hello, everybody. And we have a special guest. Hi, welcome to Space 1999, this episode. Wow. We are running a little different format today. Normally, we start the show with some still photos, but we were running behind, so we just went for it. So I'm welcomed today by Mr. Robert Wood and our very special guest and my co-host, Roy Belquist, calling from
Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, St. Luke's Hospital.
Medical center.
Medical center. Yes, I am in
Wow.
medical center. Yes, thank you, Bob. That was the answer that I should have put out there.
Now, is it a year 1 or year 2 medical center?
Year 1.
Nice. Well, you're looking good, Roy, and thank you so much. We, of course, it's been an interesting week. And we just appreciate you joining us, considering your whereabouts and your current situation. So we hope everything is going well. And we, of course, everybody out there wishes you all the best for this coming Wednesday for your big procedure. And yeah, it's we've all got your back. I think I said that on Facebook. You've got a huge community of support and love from everybody associated with Space 1999 down through the years, and you're going to come through this with flying colors.
No, I again thank you to everyone out there for all your positive support, comments, prayers, messages, calls, everything. It's scary. I'm definitely very scared, but it's a very good hospital, and yeah, it's just it's very surreal for me. So, but anyway, Wednesday will be here soon enough, and I'm glad I was able to come on for this. It's therapeutic for me, and the fact that I'm able to sit up and do this is wonderful. It's just great. You know, the Space 1999 family is wonderful, and you know, again, it's good to be here. And this is one of my favorite episodes. I mean, my God. Don't want to miss War Games. My goodness. So many stories to talk about this. A lot of people.
Oh, sorry, who cut who off there? Sorry, guys.
No, you're fine.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what then. So we're going to have some people on today, of course, again, and we're going to run it a little differently. We had a sort of a roundtable discussion last week, impromptu, of course, and some surprise guests who came on to wish Roy all the best. This week, we've sort of done the same thing. We've opened it up a little differently, though. Let's explain that. We'll just run the opening credits, and we'll come back in a couple minutes, and we'll tell how everybody can either participate or view the broadcast there at home, okay?
Yep, sounds good, Warren.
All right.
Love that opening by Catherine Bujol.
Very nice, very nice. Thanks to both Catherine and, of course, Ben Page out there, who've been both very supportive in our efforts these last few weeks, Roy. Yeah. And yeah, Bob, good to see you again. Hope you had a good week out there, and hope the weather was a little nicer in British Columbia than it was in Saskatchewan.
Definitely, yes. Although I will say we actually had some snow overnight. It's not really cold, but we had some snow, so it's very pretty. Winter wonderland. Not like Ultima Thule.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we've had a run of it this season for sure, for sure. But yeah, that's really nice when you just get a hint of winter, right? And it doesn't stick around very long, and it's just especially around Christmas time. I mean, I couldn't imagine. I think I remember 2 brown Christmases in my life, and it just wasn't the same. So, but anyway,
Good with it.
yeah. But no, well, thanks for joining, guys. We're here for the next hour or so, and live for everybody out there. We're sort of running a little different format this week. So just really quickly, I've sort of posted this broadcast in the same way as I usually do. So it's going to be streamed live into the new YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe, as well as it'll be broadcast into Space 1999 50th anniversary celebrations on Facebook, and from there cross-promoted or streamed in a couple of other pages as well. So if you just want to view the broadcast, you can go to those locations. Probably the easiest is just go to YouTube and search out Space 1999 this episode. Hit the like and subscribe button. But I've also posted the invite link to come into the actual broadcast today for everybody. We've never sort of done this before, so we just wanted to involve as many people as we could today on this fun discussion. And so if you do want to come directly into the broadcast studio, just click that link and we'll bring you on for a few minutes, and we'll do it 1 at a time or 2 at a time rather than having everybody all at once like we did last week in the roundtable style discussion. Okay.
Yeah, we'll keep it to maybe about 5 minutes for each individual. That way it gives an opportunity for everybody else to come on 1 at a time. And that way it minimizes as far as, talking over each other, which can definitely happen. So, but we want to hear your thoughts about this episode because it is such a popular episode. I mean, it's going back. I mean, there's so many stories that I can think of in regards to war games and just waiting for it to, repeat, because back in the day, we didn't have DVDs, we didn't have Blu-rays, we didn't have the internet. So when the episode was shown, basically it was our Panasonic. Well, I'm giving Panasonic a shout out. My red Panasonic tape recorder, a lot of work in, because I was taping those episodes on cassette tapes, and I'd listen to them and entertain myself as I would be building my Model Eagles or building with my Legos, and just like listening to these episodes over and over again. So especially war games, that was definitely a fan favorite.
Mm-hmm. Bob, any thoughts or memories of seeing war games for the first time here in Canada?
I don't remember seeing it initially as a child because I was too young. I really don't have those specific memories. What I do remember actually was the first time I saw it as Alien Attack, and so that shape of it. I do remember that for the first time. It was like screened in the middle of the night and late night kind of movie. So that was tremendous to rediscover, the show. At that point, it wasn't available. You couldn't watch it. There were no reruns. It wasn't available anywhere. You were, fans were desperately trading old videotapes, but Alien Attack was occasionally in, late night rerunning on TV. So, that was how I saw it again and really remembered it for the first time. The comments are coming so fast, and they're all so fun down there. Where's Doc Russell? Yeah,
I'm waiting for her.
War Games is a huge favorite, not only of a lot of fans, but a lot of the cast, loved War Games as well. They had a lot of great stuff to do in it, and a lot of fun stories and memories. Chris Penfold, who wrote it, it was one of his favorite episodes for sure. And I know he said that it was the one episode I think he felt turned out the way that he really wanted it to turn out. The way that he was able to follow it through the whole process, and so he loved it as well.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear. Yeah, I mean, it was such an epic, and when you think about it, it's like any other Space 1999 episode, and I'm not talking about the compilation, but I mean, the 52 minutes, there's so much that happens within that time frame, and it just happens right from the beginning, and there's just it just grabs you. And Warren was asking you, Bob, as far as recollections, and one of my memories is that Channel 11 out of New York City, what they did was and this is even before Alien Attack. Now I'm going back to 1975. The episode had been run, but what they did was they did a rerun where they took Breakaway and they took War Games, and they did it as a 2-hour episode. They just kind of put it together where, after Breakaway ends, it goes kind of right into War Games. And again, when we talk about Alien Attack, but I remember I have such a clear recollection of going with my parents. We went out before the episode was on. We went to a store that was in the New Jersey area. It was called Two Guys. It was almost like your Walmart or your Kmart type of store. And I remember when we were there, I got my first Model Eagle, and I think it was like $1.99, and it was the one by MPC. And I remember I have such a strong memory of coming home, watching the episode, and I had the Eagle out, and I've got my Elmer's glue, because I wasn't using model glue, and I'm trying to put it together as I'm watching it, and I was like so excited because I'm seeing the Eagle on the television watching this, and then I've got the Model Eagle that I'm trying to build at the same time, and it's just a memory that has stuck with me back from that time frame, and it's just and I'm sure everybody's got some kind of recollection of what they remember too.
And yeah, no, thanks for that. It's interesting because I think we talked about this a few weeks back, Roy, that PIX actually took the liberty to sort of run, if you will, a double bill a couple of times. So they did Breakaway and War Games, and I think they did Bringers of Wonder 1 and 2. Years before the movies came out, or around that, maybe the late 70s, early 80s. They took that liberty anyway. I find it very interesting. Bob, what you'd said about seeing Alien Attack late at night, are you that much younger than I am? Because I don't have a strong memory, but I have a vague memory of watching it in its first run, and of course it stuck with me for sure. There's so many wonderful visuals in that episode, but I do recall then later on in the 80s, you and I probably watched that same late night broadcast because CBC started to run it in syndication. But at that point, you see the 4 movies had been commissioned, and they were part of the syndication package, but of course they couldn't run it, at like 11 o'clock Saturday morning on the CBC, right? So you quite often see those movies. So I remember on a rerun cycle in the 80s, they started at the regular time slot. It was Death Star Dominion for an hour on a Saturday morning at 11 o'clock or whatever it was. But then that night at 1 or 2 in the morning, they ran Alien Attack. Mm-hmm. And so it's probably that very same broadcast that we saw together.
No, it wasn't on CBC when I was watching it. It was on a local Calgary channel called 2 and 7.
Okay, really? Okay. My bad.
So it was just like it was in syndication. It was getting out there, making the rounds.
Okay.
Yeah. But the talking about Eagles makes me think about the special effects, and of course, like War Games is the special effects episode of the whole series, isn't it? I mean, they really did an incredible job.
Absolutely, it's one of the reasons why I think it's such a fan favorite, because of the wonderful model and effects work by Brian Johnson and team there. It was they knocked it out of the park for sure.
Plus, we're introduced to the Hawk, which was so cool. I mean, and then that's when Alan Koenig's they see it on the big screen, and they go, Big Bergman goes, they're Hawks, they're Mark 9 Hawks, and then Koenig says it certainly looks that way, and then Alan right away he goes, they're war machines, and he's like, that's enough for me. So it's like they have this idea, they know what these things are. So it's like us as the viewer, we have no idea what's going on, what this is all about, but we know that they're headed right for Alpha, and this is looking intense. Alan and Pete, they're going to the Eagles, they're making the announcements. I mean, you see the astronauts heading to the travel tube, and which was a scene that was taken from Voyager's Return, but still it was so freaking cool because the intensity's building up. You see Alan and Pete going into the Eagle, and this is one of the only times that I can think of, it's the only time where we actually see them with their entire packs on, with their they have the front pack on, they have their oxygen pack on, and they're ready to go into battle. So it is just, the intensity is just so high, and then they're talking about launching a second wave of Eagles, and then just the whole interception. I mean, right from the beginning, what a strong intro. And then they take out the 3 Hawks and everything seems great, and then the next thing you know, Alan is not, he's like, you know what, it's too easy, and then you see the other Hawks coming in, and then it's like we've got ourselves a war, and then boom. So it just lays the groundwork of what is going to be happening, for the remaining like 47 minutes. It was just such a powerful intro.
Yeah, and then when that bomber comes in overhead, you got that incredible shot, which is then mirrored in Star Wars.
Absolutely.
Taking cues from what they were doing in Space 1999.
Yeah.
So that's a nice moment to remember as well. But yeah, it was, the action hits right from the beginning with War Games, and it holds you the entire way through, and everything that happens, every kind of escalation in the war is a product of the fear of the Alphans.
Yeah.
And that's what the aliens are trying to show them, that they're a world without fear, and fear can't exist on their planet. It would mean annihilation, basically. And so that's what they're shown. But everything that happens is wonderful to watch and follow the idea that the Alphans are causing it, with their reactions every step of the way.
Which we don't know in the very beginning,
No.
So as everything's starting to unfold, I mean, with the attack, they lose the 3 Eagles on the launching pads. Part of the technical section is destroyed. We see the explosive decompression effects, which were done so well, where the personnel are being literally sucked into different compartments. We see the one person, actually, I think we see 2 individuals that are sucked out into space, or blown out into space, which is just amazing the way that
I love that.
Effects. Similar to what we saw with in the episode previously in End of Eternity, when Balor was went out into space. I mean, it's just incredible work. I mean, this was a special effects bonanza, and they pulled it off very, very well 50 years ago.
Yeah, and overall, like you had mentioned, Roy, we're not privy to that as the viewer at first. So there's a lot of stakes there with everything that's going on as well. There's a lot of dramatic tension, and as you see these things happening, as the viewer the first time, you're like, oh my God, 148 dead. That hits like a bomb, right? I mean, and seeing Bob Mathias sucked out. Right. I mean, he's like we all love Bob, right? I mean, it was like. So a lot's going on, a lot of at stake there for sure. But I think that's part of the brilliance of the way Chris wrote this is to keep the viewer in suspense right up until the very end, and it plays really, really well.
And there's some people who don't like the fact at the end that it was effectively all a dream, but. I don't. That doesn't bother me at all. For one thing, I like the structure very much, but also, and maybe Roy will know this better than I will, but I think pretty much every Jerry Anderson TV series has an episode like that, a sort of a dream episode where it turns out that none of it actually really happened, and so it was kind of continuing that. I don't know if that was something that Jerry might have asked Chris to do. And then Chris came up with this. It's possible, but I don't actually know that.
You make me immediately think of the episode from UFO, Bob, and I can't think of the title of it, but where Paul Foster, actually, it's centered around him, where
when he's working out in the gym?
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Because he's abducted by the aliens and everything, by the UFO. And yes, that as far as the dream sequence. I mean, I've heard different folks talk about in piggybacking off of your comment, Bob, in regards to that, I guess, with Matter of Life and Death, where Lee Russell gives them the power, but that wasn't a dream though. That was like forces beyond our comprehension, where, Lee Russell is able to bring back and make everything the way everything was.
It all happened.
Yeah. Exactly. So so when folks kind of say what you just said in regards to going down that road, saying about the dream, I don't think it really was abused in Space 1999. I mean, Koenig did obviously die in Matter of Life and Death, and then he dies in this, but they're 2 totally different scenarios in which the situation is being rectified. So I think they're independent of each other, and I really feel that it's not something that really was a detriment for me personally. I was okay with it, but I've heard that argument mentioned by different. I shouldn't say argument, but I've heard that point brought up by different fans, though, that you expressed.
Yeah. And you mentioned Koenig's death scene in this episode. Well, no, I mean, there's a couple really. I guess there's the one where he was shot by the alien, but I'm thinking specifically of the scene where he's in space in his spacesuit and he's drifting off. And,
that is.
And there's the voiceover narration by Martin Landau. 97 minutes of life, oxygen, and then hallucination, drift from dream to real eternity. All that stuff, it's so beautifully written, and it's a moment where the show is really slowed down. The episode is slowed down. It's got this philosophical pause, and Koenig is thinking about himself. Ninth and last commander of Moonbase Alpha. I mean, there you go. There's an interesting factoid right there that we'd never heard before. That Koenig was the ninth. But I love that sequence. It's just so thoughtful and philosophical and beautiful.
Yeah, and you brought up another good point. It's calming after all the intensity, after everything that's happened, and that's another point too. Leading up to that intensity of that scene right before it, when they dock in space and then they're heading for the planet, and essentially Koenig is going to try to take the planet by force. Something that he normally wouldn't do, but he's acting out of desperation because of trying to reason with the aliens. They don't want to communicate. They're basically saying, you know what, you have no purpose in space. You're basically going to die. That's your existence. And you know what? He refuses to allow that to happen. And then they encounter that force field. And even with that, they both eject. And then Alan Carter is dead. I mean, it's like, oh my goodness. And you can even see the crack in the helmet, the visor. So it's like, it's been pierced and his life support panel is off. And it's like, oh my God. It's like, I remember watching that for the very first time. It's like, what the heck just happened here?
Yeah.
It's again, like, are you kidding me? And yeah.
What you just said, Roy, also is a really interesting point too, because that speech where the aliens say that you're a contaminating organism, a plague of fear, a fatal virus that would destroy our world, that and this whole episode really harkens back to the original one of the original concepts of the show, was that they were, the Alphans were the space invaders. And the Alphans were on this journey and they were going to encounter these, endlessly sort of hostile aliens. But the Alphans were the ones who were the invaders. And so this episode really encapsulates that. It brings back that original concept in a single episode where the Alphans are the ones who are a plague of fear that is infiltrating or threatening to destroy this peaceful, fearless society.
And you know what, Bob? Just to connect a point, you're just reminding me. It connects away in a lot of ways to Space Brain, too. You think about it, where the moon is going through the brain. And it's being rejected because it is like a virus. It's something that does not belong.
And Voyager's Return.
Your point about that.
Voyager's Return is another one where something that we send out there, and this is a concern that they had a lot. Johnny Byrne and Chris Penfold. The breakaway was the nuclear power, nuclear energy, nuclear weapons. It was an anti-nuclear statement. It was an environmental statement, but
the 70s.
Yeah, and so yes, Voyager's Return, we're sending something out there that is we don't know what it's going to do, and it ends up destroying worlds. And Space Brain, the moon, destroys this, incredible alien creature, the Space Brain, or does it? It may have destroyed it or may not have destroyed it. But the creature is just the Space Brain is just existing. The moon is the thing that's threatening it.
Right.
And here again, the aliens, they didn't come to us. The Alphans came to them. They can't control the course of the moon, but there they are, threatening this peaceful, fearless world. And so the Alphans can't go down to the planet because it would be annihilation, and that's what they're shown.
Yeah.
And Sorry, go.
Oh, I was just going to say, see, and it's this whole concept that you're touching on here, guys, that really make that idea of this being just one of those, like the dream sequence at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and again, I'm going to circle back to the way Chris structured this. You see, like, it's not just a dream sequence episode for the sake of it being a dream episode, right? There's a solid reason behind it, and that's the fact, just as you were describing, Bob, that the aliens want to show the Elfins what could be, right? And that's where it's a little more powerful than just thinking of it as a typical a Dallas cliffhanger episode where they come back the next season and none of it just what's his name walks out of the ship. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Bobby.
Yeah.
The actor's name.
They wrote off an entire year of TV. But no, there's a little more thought that went into the way this.
Yeah, and this is a powerful anti-war statement, as well. And that's always valuable in the world. It was valuable then when Chris wrote it, and it's valuable now. Very much so.
We really, I mean, like I can't think of any plagues of fear that we have today. Come on.
Bob, no, this was an earlier. Am I correct in saying that this was an earlier story too that was written by Chris, or a concept?
I think it was part. I think it. Oh, yeah, you're testing me right now, and I have to pull out one of my books.
I was going to say there's a plug.
I think it was one of the. I think it was one of the original story outlines, story ideas that they had from the beginning. Yes. Yeah.
Nice. Well, listen, we got a couple of people waiting in the background. Let's bring a couple guests on for 5 or 10 minutes each. And we're doing really well. Though we're 26 minutes in, and we haven't even had our first guest on. So let's get into that. And for either of you, I'm good to run the gamut. Roy, of course, if you ever need to drop off at any time, of course, don't worry. Just, take our best regards.
No problem.
And I mentioned to you before we went live that you actually look really good, and it looks like you're just sitting upright in a nice big throne. So maybe it's R's throne, or maybe it's a war Game of Thrones. I don't know, but you do look really, really good today.
Thanks. It's what's going on inside that I'm worried about, but thank you. I appreciate the compliments.
You bet. Okay, well, let's bring on Mr. Stephen Billings here. Hi, Stephen.
Hi.
Hi, Stephen.
Thanks for being so patient behind the scenes there, and thanks for joining us today. And did you figure out where to view the broadcast on YouTube? You got it all?
I got it all, thanks.
Nice. Well, wonderful to see you again, and thank you so much for your time today. We're talking about war games, of course, and over there in the UK. This probably would have been one of the powerhouse episodes that aired over there as well. Do you have any thoughts of seeing it first run over there in the UK, Stephen?
Well, my thoughts on it, one of the thoughts I have on it is that, and I did mention this to Brian Johnson, I wonder if this was influential in getting George Lucas to use all the laser effects in Star Wars.
Yes, of course, very influential. Just as Bob had said, even the shot of the bomber flying overhead was obviously lifted from War Games directly for the opening of Star Wars. So and that just the overall timing of things. This was all going on virtually at the same time. George Lucas was already over there scouting, in '75 for different facilities and locations and things like that. So that you can't deny the timing of things as well.
Well, and one of the things I just want to jump in on about that too is, and I remember Brian Johnson talking about this in one of the discussions, that literally, I think maybe days or a week after Brian Johnson had signed the contract to do be the special effects director for year 2 of Space 1999, George Lucas had approached him and wanted him to do the effects work for Star Wars, but he was committed to do Space 1999 year 2. And I'm, thankful that was in place, because, I mean, to not have Brian Johnson be a part of the show, I can't even think about it.
Yeah. And that's where they circled back, and Brian Johnson did Empire.
Yeah. Yep. That's right.
Yeah,
I do wonder if Brian Johnson doesn't get the credit he deserves, because I really wonder if George Lucas got the idea of the laser battles from watching Space 1999.
Absolutely, Stephen. Yeah, I mean although I mean there's it's the age old argument about how much is stolen or lifted versus just simply paying homage, right? There's actually a lot of things in Star Wars that people have sort of accused him of not necessarily paying homage to, but virtually. Lifting outright, like a desert planet. Even the mention of the word spice on a desert planet in Star Wars is kind of a blatant ripoff of Dune, right?
Another thing is, what was I going to say? It's gone out of my head now. Yeah, the shot of the ship going overhead may well have come from 2001.
Oh,
You see the Discovery go past.
Exactly. That's just it. And even Space Year One, I mean, a lot of criticisms have been surrounding the fact that stylistically it does look a lot like 2001. So there you go. It keeps getting handed down between productions.
Well, because Brian Johnson's the link on all of them, isn't he? Because he was on 2001, Space 1999, and Star Wars.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Just going to interject.
Sorry.
I was going to quickly interject. War Games was one of the original 8 episode outlines, and it's the only one that actually stayed with the same title as it originally had. All the other ones changed. So there we go.
I do wonder also with War Games, the point that Christopher Penfold is trying to make is that it's the effect that fear has on us, that it causes us to do terrible things and I think he's right to have the dream ending, because the aliens are showing them this is what would happen if you came here, but not because your aggression is caused by your fear. And the point of the thing was that if they'd have just waited a little longer, nothing would have happened. Mm-hmm. So their fear manifested itself as aggression, and how many times does that happen?
Absolutely right, and that's happening in the world right now, in more than one way. We don't necessarily want to get overtly political because we don't want to turn anybody off with that. But there are very, very clear, obvious examples right now of fear of people who are different, of things like that, turning into very, very hurtful and damaging policies. Why? Why is there fear? Why do we have to hate and hurt other people needlessly? So I'm not blaming anyone in particular, but I am.
She says at the end, she says, a world without fear. How much of our lives are affected by us being in a constant state of fear?
Yeah, well, leading to
great if we didn't have that. And that's in our mind. That's in our imagination. It's not real. It's not necessarily real. The things we're afraid of may not happen.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
And our fear may, as I say, manifest them, cause them to happen.
Exactly, because
it affects our actions, doesn't it, as well?
Yes, and it affects how we encounter a situation or encounter somebody or encounter anything, and it'll change how we respond to it. And by changing our response, it changes the feedback that we get in that moment.
And that's the whole point of the episode. I mean, right at the very end, it's when Koenig comes through. I mean, the aliens are hesitating because they are basically telling Helena he's accepted death. He's conquered his fear, and Helena says that she wants him the way he was, and they are resistant about allowing that to happen because they know what that result is going to be. But they go along with it. He comes back, he walks through, and he pulls out his stun gun, his gun, and before he fires it, there's a shot of the alien, Anthony Valentine, and it's just that he has this look on his face like he knows what's going to happen. It's almost like it's like the outlines of a page. It's like reading a book, and it's like, you know what? It's right there. And then Koenig pulls the trigger, and it's one blast. But think about it, what that one blast manifests into, that it pretty much is like Hiroshima, where everything on the planet is leveled. And it's just, again, it's lighting the match. It's very symbolic, and it really is a powerful statement. And I mean, I remember immediately, as a child watching it, thinking, how could a laser blast do it? But it's so much more than that. It's symbolic. It's very deep rooted, and it's expressing what can actually happen, allowing the fear to take over and manifest into this destruction, and that being the end result, the planet is leveled. And then even with Koenig, contacting, Paul and crew, and basically saying, what, go back to Alpha. If you're going to die, that's where you need to die, not here. And it's just, it's, for the times to have something written to be that profound, I mean, it says a lot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the combination of action and philosophy and character, development and character work in this episode, I mean, it's pretty awesome package. War Games, I mean, that was the whole thing going into year 2, was that they wanted, characterization, they wanted action. Well, don't we have it right here?
Exactly. Yeah, we did have it. It's just that they didn't like the way it was presented. And, when I say they, the suits, the powers that be, ITC New York, and it's unfortunate because it was all there. And it's so disturbing when, I don't mean to go down this rabbit hole, but it's just that when you hear that there were not personal interactions, there was not feeling, there wasn't characterization. Yes, there was. It's just that
it was there, but it was subtle. And the problem is, back in the 1970s, and it's still true today, I mean, the idea of character development is centered so much around that coda at the end of the episode where they're all standing around laughing and joking.
Right.
Exactly. And the space didn't do that year 1 anyway. But I mean, it was truer and more sincere in my mind, than that fake or phony style of characterization.
Yeah, it wasn't forced. It was natural.
Right.
And I mean, we'll get into this discussion when we talk about year 2. And again, this is not to bash year 2. I know there's many fans out there that love year 2. I enjoy many, many, many year 2 episodes, specifically the very early ones of year 2, and specifically more so the later ones, because I really felt that the show was really starting to go meet its stride. But again, we'll talk about that when we reach discuss year 2.
Yeah, for sure. Well, no, listen, Stephen. Hey, listen, we're gonna bring on another very special guest. Thank you again. It's so nice to see you again. I know you'd mentioned you, of course, were in London there a few months back. I hope you had a good time with things.
It was a fantastic, an amazing thing that you achieved.
Yeah. Did you have a chance to sit in the Eagle by chance?
No, I didn't actually. Well, they were very. They didn't want too many people sitting in there, didn't they? I think they thought it might get damaged, or the person might sue them if they collapsed or something like that. But I had some pictures right in front of it. But yeah, that was amazing. The Eagle, they set out. They were up till like early hours of the morning getting that going. But it was a full-size cockpit, and then the number of people there from the show as well. It's just amazing.
And are you thinking of coming over to Los Angeles for the convention in September?
Well, I'm considering it actually, funnily enough, because I got a friend who lives in Orange County, so I got someone I could stay with.
That's great.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Have you decided what guests you're going to invite yet, or are you still working on that?
That's up in the air. Of course, we put the word out. I mean, we virtually announced Los Angeles while we're still in London. So I think a lot of the celebrities were aware of it, and we'll just have to see how it plays out. Of course, one of our big hopes and a big part of the reason to have it in Los Angeles or Burbank was to hopefully be able to attract Barbara Bain enough to come and join us, and it's virtually right in her backyard, right, Bob? And I think it would be really nice to see her take part in one of these 50th anniversary celebrations, because it was a big part of her life and Martin's, and I know the fans would love to see her. So cross your fingers.
Yeah, and of course we do have, I think already on the website, there's a couple of actors already listed. Nick Tate and Yasko are listed.
Yep. Yes. Yep. That's right.
Things are underway.
There will be more.
Keep watching, but no, we I hope you can make it over, Stephen, for sure.
Okay, just one last thing before you go. I actually worked in Pinewood Studios, and I went to the L&M stages, and they do tell you not to go on the stages, but I had to go in there just into that hallowed land.
Wow, amazing.
Very nice.
Yeah.
That is incredible. Do you still work at Pinewood today?
No, I was only there for a contract for a few months, and also Jerry's office is at the back of it as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Very
right.
cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, well, listen, thanks very much again. Some very fascinating insight, and we're.
Oh, sorry, and one other thing. I did also go to Brian Johnson's house and met him there.
Oh, is that right?
Really nice guy. Yeah, really nice guy.
Yeah. Well, and this was like we were mentioning earlier. This is a sort of his swan song when it comes to Space 1999 effects, because I can't even think of anything in year 2 that tops this. Maybe Dorcons, but it's still not even close. Yeah.
No, Dorcons, well, we shouldn't be going too deeply into year 2, but some of the effects are great in Dorcons, but other ones are pretty static, Yeah.
No, for sure. Maybe the Ego crash scene in Space War, taken on that level.
That's a great sequence. Wonderful sequence. Seance Spectre has some great effects.
Seance Spectre, that's one of my favorites. And in fact, Bob and I have talked about this online as an online discussion, and that's again later year 2 episode, and that's an episode I felt that should have been a 2-parter because I think there was so much going on there that was crammed into 52 minutes again, and I thought Peter Medic's direction and approach was incredible with that episode. But we'll get into that, in months to come.
For sure. Okay, well, great. Thanks, Stephen, and we'll bring out our next guest. Sorry, Bob, you go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you mentioned Peter Medak for Sound Spectre makes me think of, we haven't talked about Charlie Crichton yet for War Games.
Absolutely.
And, it's incredible direction, spectacular. I mean, think about being in main mission during the attacks and all the beams falling down and people rushing around and Fuller's Earth clouds everywhere. A couple of the actors diving, Sandra and is it Prentice, who dive under the desks for shelter.
It's funny you mentioned that, Bob. I remember, I think it was Xenia was doing an interview. I think it was on the Space 1999 documentary, and she was saying about as far as like heading for cover, and then she thought, oh boy, I'm like the lady that's doing it. And then she said she's looking over, and then she sees like Clifton and Prentice doing the same thing.
Yeah,
you have all this stuff coming at you, like you said, Fuller's Earth and everything, and it was pretty intense. And I'm sure the cleanup on that episode must have been pretty intense. In fact, I was even thinking, the Last Enemy was the next episode that would be filmed. They really had a lot to prepare for after that.
Yeah, for sure. Very interesting comment online, guys. Can we get George Lucas as a podcast? Something else for Warren to work on. Well, boy, if I ever find the guy that wrote that.
That guy's asking for it.
I'm just trying to lend a hand, Warren.
Hi, Bob. Bob number 2.
Guys, it's great to be with you today. Thank you so much. And Roy, good to see you looking good.
Thanks, Bob.
And
thank you.
We're all with you. I think that's pretty obvious at this point.
It is. I appreciate that, though. Thank you.
Something you guys have really jumped into the philosophy behind this, and it's brought up a couple of thoughts. First of all, I want to say I was in a Kmart buying a $1.99 Fun Dimensions Eagle, probably about the same time Roy was. And that moment of seeing the Eagle in the aisle at Kmart is still like it was yesterday in my mind. To see those pictures of Martin and Barbara on the box and Eagle. So I wonder if it had to have been very close to the same time, Roy.
It probably was. I think you're right.
Philosophically, I hadn't thought War Games through this deep, but as you think about it, this theme, the Alphans are being taught a lesson here, right? And is this part of their excursion into the universe that they need to learn, they need to evolve their thinking or their emotions? And is this, the mysterious unknown force trying to teach them something? And you see this theme also in Star Trek, The Enemy Within, where Kirk is separated from his fear as he is split by the transporter, but he needs that back. And then even in The Final Frontier, with Star Trek, where Sybok is taking away pain, and Kirk fights against it. I need my pain.
Mhm.
And this thought comes to me, by the way, when you mentioned that Helena wanted John Koenig back the way he was before he had sort of addressed and dealt with his fear. And I think there's just an interesting philosophical lesson there of some sort that I couldn't fathom out. But it definitely seems like the Alphans are learning a hard lesson here. And is it intentional? Is it the universe saying, before you can go any further, before you can be part of this, you need to learn this major lesson?
Well, that's very interesting, Bob. And we were talking about the ending and the dream sequence aspects of it, but under everything you just said there, it makes me wonder, as far as it was like a waking dream more so, because do you remember at the end when the male alien shows up on screen, it triggers something in Helena, and it's like an after effect, right? And it's that's the lesson, right? I mean, we don't want you to just go through this but then not remember. There has to be a takeaway, right?
Right.
Well, yeah, because Koenig even says, I almost forgot. And then Bergman says, forgot what? And he goes, I can't remember. And then Helena jumps in and says, I remember, and says about a world without fear. And then, how beautiful it was and how they had lost it. So it's presented to them almost like you said, a waking dream. It's almost something that's like a subliminal, maybe, you know what I mean? It's like they were in that scenario. It was happening all over again, but Koenig makes the decision not to fire because it was something that kind of overcame him and caused him to reflect upon what they had gone through. But again, he kind of lost it, whereas Helena didn't. And it's an interesting point because, I mean, that in itself could have led to another, like a backstory with the, with all the other Alphans. What would their recollections have been from everything? How did it resonate with them? But yeah, that's good point about that, Bob. And one thing I wanted to say too, in addition to what you were referring to about the, needing that inner strength, it's almost like a morality play where, a lot of times as human beings, we get frustrated with ourselves about who we are and everything. But it just goes to show at the end of the day, we need everything that is within us in order to function, because there are times where we get very frustrated with, how we could be with if we're too compassionate, because then we get hurt by different scenarios, or if we're too much of an aggressor, then essentially we are hurting, you know what I mean? And it's like we need to pull back. It's like my favorite line is, it's all about the balance. It's a matter of balance. But but that's what makes us human beings. And it's a lesson to be learned. And it kind of transpires into this story again, with them being on the outside, the Alphans being the outsiders, and going deeper and deeper into space, and needing to be very careful not to interfere. And this was something that was even brought out in the episode previously, right at the end, where Helena, Bergman, and Koenig are talking about Baylor. They need to leave things alone. They need not to meddle, because if they do, again, there's a consequence with that. And they need to be very careful and be very mindful of that.
Even earthbound somewhat with their interference on the Caldorian ship.
Yeah, exactly. Good point.
Which is a little bit of fear working in their favor, right? A little bit of fear is a good thing. I would have to think a world without fear would end up destroying itself or getting destroyed, because there would be no hesitation to meddle in things that were dangerous or destructive.
Yeah, but they've achieved perfect harmony. They're a world without fear. They're a world of complete peace, and their only defense is to make others' fears appear real.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely a fascinating,
Beautiful
discussion, and I guess in some ways it makes me think. Well, Testament of Arcadia in some sense was the culmination of, perhaps for some people, the Alphans' meaning and mission, so to speak, in the universe. But even with that episode, I think I'm left leaving that, there must be something even grander and something more that the Alphans could have come to and been a part of. And of course, the epilogue that you guys put together for London and that Anton Phillips narrated really kind of suggested that, right? That the mission goes on, that there's still more out there to be found and discovered. And I thought that was just beautiful.
Yeah, good point. Again, Bob, thanks for that. And I mean, as a whole, I think this episode, I've said this many times doing these podcasts, that there's so much to unravel here. But funnily enough, one of the previous comments from Charlene, Bob, I don't know if you saw it or not, but when is the book coming out? The Philosophy of Space 1999, right?
Yeah, it's an idea that I have had to do a book on the philosophy of space 1999. I've even got a title. The title is "See What You Want to See," subtitled "The Philosophy of Space 1999," and it was a book that I had proposed to do with David Hirsch, and David really wanted to do it as well. David very much felt that Chris Penfold should have been involved in it, and we would have loved to have had Chris Penfold involved in it, but sadly, Chris Penfold is no longer with us. And so when Chris passed, that kind of, took some of the wind out of the sails of the idea of doing that book, because sort of without him, it is lesser than what it could have been with him. So I'm glad you like the title, Charlene. Yeah, I mean, it's still a great idea to do. I would love to do it. Maybe we would do it in a different way. Maybe we could reach out to other people and have other people's thoughts involved or something like that. I don't know, but
similar to this, it's
I love the title too, Bob. I think that's it's perfect. It really resonates. Absolutely.
Yeah.
What I want to jump in on, and I didn't mean to cut you off, is that we were talking about the mysterious unknown force a little bit. Actually, though, Koenig even makes reference of it when he's talking to the alien in the beginning, because when he's stating his case and he's going through everything and saying that how maybe something has been looking after them. And he even at one point says, God, if you like. So he feels that there is something that's looking after them, something that's guiding them through this. So I thought it was very interesting that was something that was brought into the story and is reflected upon.
Mysterious unknown force.
The mysterious, yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. And Bob Mack, just really quick, and that's I'm very glad to hear that was sort of your takeaway. I mean, it was we were trying to present the idea that even 50 years later, their journey was ongoing, right? And that there's still new adventures going on, and we will actually throughout this podcast, we will, just so everybody knows, we will be talking about Message from Moonbase Alpha as well as Return to Moonbase Alpha, and there is, I think, it's no big secret that there is some folks working on something very special that will come out in the next year or two that will continue the story and continue the journey as well.
Well, that's very exciting. Boy, guys, thanks so much for having me be a part of this today. Really, really enjoy seeing all of you, and of course, our thoughts and prayers are with you, Roy.
Thanks, Bob. Great seeing you too, and thank you for that. It means so much. I can't even say how much all the positivity and all the deep emotional comments. It means a lot. So I'm looking forward to being on the other side of all this after Wednesday, and moving forward with it. So it'll be great to see everybody in person in September. So moving on. I was going to say trekking on, but I don't want to. I don't want to cross the line with that.
Bob, you got your ticket for Los Angeles already, right?
I do. I'm looking forward to it, and it'll give me another opportunity to wear my Charles Gordon season 1 tunic, which is they're few and far between. So I appreciate you giving me that chance today.
looks great. Charles Gordon, does some amazing work.
Yes, he does. He sure does.
Awesome. Okay, well, thanks again, Bob, and you have a good rest of the week coming up, and we'll chat very soon, my friend, okay?
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Warren. I appreciate it.
You betcha.
Take care.
So another sequence that I want to mention is Helena's indoctrination on the alien planet. I think it's some of Barbara Bain's most incredible acting in the whole series. I love it. As she sort of falls under the spell and learns about the alien civilization, and she has it's just a remarkable sequence. I love it. Ooh, who's coming
Yeah,
up?
you're right too, Bob, because she really does. It's a shift in her personality of the character of Dr. Russell, because the way she's approaching everything from one right from the beginning, before she's pretty much abducted, and pretty much allows almost like her guard to go down, and she's accepting, and she conveys that through her performance, and it's very natural. So yes, that's an excellent point.
It's delicately written too. Am I free to? She's asking these questions and she's learning. Am I free to walk out of here?
Yeah.
You're free to go wherever your mind has the will to take you. That's lovely, and in the way that it's structured as well, with her sitting in the perspex box, with all the lights and colors all around her. It's beautiful, and she's learned, and that's what she says. It's beautiful. When she learns about the brain of their world.
The entire segment there within the alien complex is just shot so beautifully and the use of a reflection and mirrors and things like that. So you have two people on the screen at the same time, and one of them is a reflection, is side by side. It's amazing.
And that was a wonderful little thought too. The lights, the colors, maybe they're part of their language.
Yep.
They talk to us. But yeah, and the visual aesthetics of the episode, again, it's another positive for it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, hey, we brought Nancy on. I'm not sure if you're still out there, Nancy from Calgary, Nancy Ely. You are live, but you may be having some connection difficulties there. No problem.
Hi guys.
Oh, you are there. Okay.
Hey, Nancy.
I'm working in the background while you guys are chatting away here.
Are you doing a workout?
No, I'm working on a presentation for the program I'm doing.
Oh, awesome.
All related to my business though, but I've been tuning in and just listening to the chatter. I found that episode on the whole to be quite interesting on so many levels. You guys were just chatting about that sequence with Barbara Bain and Helena going through that whole indoctrination thing. And I agree. She played that extremely well. There was a little bit of a shift there for her. And to be honest, I watching it as a kid, I found it rather weird. Just the way they did the sequence. I don't know what it was, but one of the things that really jumped out me was when Koenig is floating in space and he's ruminating, he's reflecting, and just how calm he was.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, imagine, you've only got, so many minutes of air left, knowing, because he is an astronaut, knowing what's going to happen to him physically when he runs out of air.
Right.
And yet absolutely calm. And I thought that Martin Landau played that quite well.
Beautifully. That's a sequence, we keep mentioning other sci-fi shows and Star Trek, but that's a sequence you never would have seen with Captain Kirk on Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, and because we talked about that, and this is a testament to the way the series gelled and worked together. First versus the special effects.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but Nancy, you've got a problem with the audio coming back on Nancy's end?
I'm just going to do that for a second, Nancy. Sorry, but it's a testament to the way the units work together, right? Because when you look at that sequence and that beautiful dialogue written by Chris, delivered by Martin, right? They could have decided to take all that in close up with Martin and his arms sort of like this, sort of at this. Yeah. And they do that at the beginning, right? You can see his helmet and his visor, and he's turning and he's floating, right? But it was the decision to cut to the long shot where you see him and he's about an inch long in the vastness of space that really lends to the impact and the performance and the writing, right? It's that sense that creates the loneliness, the sense of how empty and vast space is,
and how small we are.
Yes.
Yeah, and after everything that had happened, you think about it, not just, hours before, he was the commander of the base. It's a community. All of that has been ripped away, and essentially he's lost the base. He was on a ship. He lost the ship, and he lost his friends, his companions. He was with Alan at the time when his eagle blew apart, and now essentially everything is really being ripped away from him. And then the last thing that's going to go is going to be his own personal environment. It's like, how can I put it? It's I really don't want to get into this, but it's just that, like, I'm just going to center around what, like, on Thursday, I had a big scare with everything that happened with me, just because of, my situation. And it was the first time in my life, I kind of felt like, you know what, I don't know if I'm going to pull through this. And it's just like the things that go through your mind when something like that, having that experience, it's crazy, and you hear individuals talk about that, where, you think about the past, you think about the future, you think about your loved ones, you think about your friends, you think about, your experiences, and you've heard these different stories. And I can honestly say that, not to get melodramatic here, but it's like that kind of happened to me on Thursday night when I was fearful. So in terms of that, and I'm trying to tie this into what's happening here, it's like, oh my God, this is it. This might be the end. And this is the end, especially in Koenig's case, because he's not going to pull out of this. There's no way he can. I mean, he is just left on his own, and it's final. I mean, again, Bob, you mentioned it before, John Koenig, from Planet Earth, 9th and last commander of Moonbase Alpha. It's the end of the story. Yeah. And it's really conveyed exceptionally well. Martin Landau, again, with his performance, he's amazing, and it hits the mark. Again, this episode just hits all check boxes across the board. But when you're watching this, as Nancy was saying, when you're younger, you have a different appreciation for the episodes. But as adults, we can really see it from a deeper perspective, and it's very emotional, very moving. So,
and also emotional and moving is Bergman's Goodbye Alpha.
Oh my God, yes, yeah.
Which is one of my favorite moments in the series. One of Barry Morse's best moments in the whole series. We are mankind.
Yeah.
And everything he says there is just beautiful. We still have much to learn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the writing in this episode is poetic. It's thought-provoking. It's inspirational. There's a lot to learn from everything, and again, we're here 50 years later celebrating it, and it says a lot.
Well, and like when Bob Mack was just on, and he was saying that he hadn't necessarily thought about some of these philosophical angles of the show when he'd watched it before. So now he is. So there you have people who are longtime fan discovering different levels of appreciation for the show, which is amazing that we can do that after 50 years.
Yeah, this has been one of the benefits of doing these weekly podcasts. It's even made me go back and reflect on a lot of things that I've seen, countless times, but never really given much thought to.
Oh, same here. I mean, there's definitely things I've thought about, but I mean, having these, very intimate and personal discussions that we're having each week, it really, there's things that we definitely miss, and it really allows us to reflect upon and to really just go to the next level. And it's a good thing.
Yeah. And the other thing that comes to mind, and Bob, I think you were on that episode a few weeks ago, Alpha Child. And I'd mentioned the idea that I think it was somebody in Starlog at one point suggested, I think it was even Jerry that suggested that the bomber that you see in War Games was actually manifested out of our fear, the Elfin's fear, from what they went through in Alpha Child.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Right.
and hence the reason for reusing that ship.
Reusing the model. Yeah. I mean, that's a brilliant thought, which I had never thought of until I heard that when we were having the Alpha Child conversation. Yeah, absolutely. Because
And that ties
where it was manifested from.
Because I mean, the Hawks were war machines that were on Earth,
right?
So why not?
The bomber was also from the Elfin's memories.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes total sense.
Yeah. Chris Trice is out there as well, and Chris had mentioned something about that bomber being Martin's first build or first crack at what was presented from the Discovery in 2001, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like a tribute to the Discovery. Yeah.
Oh,
I think it was a ship that Martin Bauer had built and was like sort of part of his presentation to Brian Johnson to join the show.
Wow, nice.
I believe that's correct.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that. That's pretty cool.
And actually, there's another comment from Chris there, very, very relevant. There's similar vignettes concerning what the crew are thinking when facing what they think is their doom in Black Sun.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Which, of course, Chris Penfold rewrote from the original by David Weir. So,
yeah,
that was a good discussion too. Yeah, and talking about the Hawks, they were built by Martin Bauer, and there were 3 different sized Hawks. There was the 31-inch, 16-inch, and then the 5-inch ones, which were accompanied with the bomber, excuse me, the smaller ones. That whole sequence too, with when Alan basically saves the moon from the bomber attack. We didn't even talk about that. That was pretty incredible in itself too. Mm-hmm. I mean, just showing the power of the Eagle and how it came through. That was just an amazing sequence, especially with the explosion and how riveting that was.
And everything is expectation in the show as well. So, if they're anticipating something is going to happen, then that's the way that it goes. So in that case, with Alan firing on the bomber and it blowing up like that, is that necessarily the power of the Eagle? Is the Eagle's laser really that strong, or is that just part of the escalation of?
It's a dream, right?
The whole thing is a dream. Absolutely.
Everything is sort of an interpretation of reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, no, that's a good point, because that small, tiny little Eagle taking out that thing with one shot.
That was pretty amazing, though. But that's a great point, Bob. Yeah. And speaking of comments, and I wasn't going to go here with this, but Bob Mack is putting this up about the special effects with the Rescue Eagle cardboard cutout that's on the pad that gets blown out. Yeah, but you know what? That's okay.
Yeah,
it's minor, and it goes by really quickly.
It does.
Yeah. Good eye though. If you spotted it, I wouldn't have remembered it first airing, but in the '80s, again, when I saw it in Alien Attack, when I was a little older, of course, it stuck out.
But to be fair, though, it was reimagined. David Hirsch and crew
and Tim Mallet actually redid that scene for Super Space Theater. Yeah. All those years later. The other thing I want to mention is Robert Hill was just commenting that this episode of War Games was actually one of the heavily marketed episodes merchandise-wise, with the famous Viewmaster set, and those were, I mean, I know I had that. I flipped through those 3 reels time and time again, and they were so beautiful because they actually had to use they shot them with separate cameras on set as they were filming that episode to get that 3D effect.
I remember there was a store. It was a grocery store when we lived in Wallington, New Jersey. It's before we moved out to this area of New Jersey where I grew up. There was a store called the A&P, and I can envision it. There was a rack down on the one aisle, and on it they had Viewmaster reels, and the one that they had was from Space 1999, this specific episode, and then the other one that I actually remember being there, believe it or not, was from Star Trek, and it was the Omega Glory that they did. And if I remember correctly too, they actually did I had and I still actually have mine. It's
I do too.
And it was a red Viewmaster.
Mhm.
But they also had ones which I didn't have, which were they did the sound, I think, where you actually had like a recording or some type of audio that went along with it. And if my understanding correct is for the Space 1999 version, there's like some form of narration that was accompanied with that. But the photos that are in that though are different. There you go. Yep. Wow.
That's
Yeah.
my original. That's my original from the 70s.
Yeah. Bob has said he has his, and I've got mine. Mine's a red one.
Yeah.
But,
Mine's red.
It's pretty cool. But the photos that they actually used were not the photos that were in the episode, because they were specifically tailored for the Viewmaster. So they actually took, while they were shooting, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And they're beautiful. They're beautiful, beautiful
They
images.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
Three-dimensional.
And I think the third one that I had as a kid was there was a UFO set.
Oh, I didn't even know about that, Warren. That's
That was
cool.
available. Yeah.
Wow.
And then there's a year 2 set as well, which I don't
Was
have.
there?
Really?
I'm sure there was. Wasn't there?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm
There
pretty
is?
sure it was.
Oh, wow.
But I think it's pretty rare.
I
Or
did
maybe
not-
maybe I dreamed it.
it's all part of War Games.
Oh, yes, yes. Well, listen, fellas, we're an hour and 11 minutes. We did fairly well. We had a few people on. Thank you very much to everybody out there. Hey, just really quick for anybody out there viewing, I know in Canada and certain parts of the US, tomorrow is actually a holiday. And Roy and I were discussing the possibility of maybe pre-recording next week's episode tomorrow. And we didn't have anybody specific in mind to come on, but if anybody wants to, we'd be potentially recording around noon Eastern tomorrow for an hour. If anybody wanted to come on, just reach out to us overnight, and we'd love to have you on. The more the merrier. That's why these last 2 weeks with these different format shows have been a lot of fun. There's been a lot of people that have been able to come on that haven't before. Speaking of that, we're going to round out things here today, fellas, with somebody else who's going to be joining us for the first time. And I don't know, boy, I don't know what to think about this, but we are joined by Miss Catherine Cuglietta. Hi, Catherine.
Hey, Catherine.
Catherine, we can't hear you. I just want to say I don't think there is a year 2 set.
I don't think so either. Yeah.
I believe
didn't
in
think there
dreams.
was, but
Yeah.
That's okay.
I do still have my original Viewmaster too, but I'm older than you guys, so mine is from the 60s, and it's sort of a tan brown thing. It's also upstairs, and I'm not going to go get it. But anyway, no.
Hi, welcome.
Welcome, Catherine.
Thanks.
First time on the show. Thanks for joining
Yeah.
us.
Probably shouldn't have put me on. Not in a good mood, but
Uh-oh. Excuse me.
Well, we're going to lighten your mood, trust me, because you got three of the finest right in front of you.
What's your favorite thing about War Games, Catherine?
I kind of like the fact that it turns out to be a dream, except that also always feels a little bit like a cop out to me when an episode does it too. I kind of, but I guess I kind of like the lesson from it that, well, whoever that the commander is supposed to kind of realize that, it's not like he actually has a base of people that are really suited, for, it's not like he's got a base of soldiers and stuff. He's got Moonbase Alpha, which is a base of scientists and researchers. And I always wondered, honestly, how many Eagle parts did they have? But to keep putting Eagles together, even though they did not, in fact, lose any in this episode because it was a dream. There's so many others where they lost Eagles. And I kind of always wondered, how do we keep reproducing Eagles? But okay. Maybe they have a 3D printer that's really, really good.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a fair point. Oh, one thing we didn't cover, Warren, which we usually do at the beginning of the episode, but I will interject.
Oh, the ITC summary.
Yes.
Yes.
So with that said, Moonbase Alpha finds itself at war with an unnamed planet. The outcome is disastrous. Everything is wrecked. But can there be a future for the survivors on the aggressor planet?
Ooh. Ooh. Very nice, very nice. You know what? It makes me think of one other thing here, folks, is the fact that, considering everything we've just been saying about this being a dream-like state, I think this is the only episode where the planet isn't given a name.
Definitely one of them. Yeah, definitely.
Or maybe Collision Course. Does R's planet have a name?
Asteria.
Asteria, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Everything else is planet, whether it's Planet B, Sunim. I think this is the only episode where it's just the planet.
Retha for Full Circle. Yeah.
Along with Roy reading the ITC synopsis, I have here the original outline, or not the original outline, but the original story pitch when they had those 8 original story concepts.
Oh, please.
And War Games reads, approaching an alien planet in a far galaxy, the Earthmen are treated as invaders and met with hostility.
Nice. That sums it up.
Yeah.
Which they are basically invaders, but it's not like it's their fault because they can't drive the moon. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. And
Missy made a comment. No, the planet in the immunity syndrome did not have a name.
Oh, Missy, you're absolutely right.
Yeah,
And I meant to get one of your comments up. Sorry, but thanks for joining us as well, Missy.
But
sure.
Yeah. Well, this was really fun. This was good, and I think we really hit all the bases with everything. And
I'll say I love the alien makeup too. Not really.
Oh yeah.
But it's interesting. It's interesting.
I was going to mention that because, of course, with Julian Glover, he has some very famous stories about Isla's makeup in this episode, and
which she would not let him talk about at the con. Apparently, she over the years she's decided it's just not as funny as he thinks it is. So I don't know.
I remember reading that in Starlog magazine back in the day, actually, because.
And he remembered that 45 years later when I met him 2 hours north of where I live in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. He came for the Fan Expo, and I saw him in the bar late at night, and he relayed that very same story.
And clearly she remembers still, too.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, I love the alien makeup. Love the aliens. Love their stoicism and their emotionlessness.
Yeah. Absolutely. It totally worked. It was all a part of the story.
And Julian and Isla, it was lovely to meet Isla. She was just so vibrant and full of life and fun and funny at the same time. In London, she was lovely.
And really good at reining him in. So of course she's had practice. She's had practice, obviously, but
no, for sure. Well, listen, Roy, I know you have really knocked it out of the park as far as your time here participating today. We're at an hour and 18 minutes. That's fantastic. So we don't want to keep you. We know you have a lot going on over the next few days. You need some rest.
You look remarkably good.
Yeah.
You do. You look great.
Yeah, your makeup today is should get a raise. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I said to Warren earlier. It's everything that's going on internally. That's
Some of those lines just came back to me. I feel like Roy should ask one of the nurses, "Am I free to walk out of here?" And the nurse will say, "You're free to go wherever your mind has the will."
Your mind has the will. Thank you.
We could all do with a bit of fresh air, right? I guess I'll just have to do for a walk down the corridor.
Peer out a window.
Wrong episode. I was quoting from Force of Life, but it's all good.
No, well, this has been fantastic, everybody. We really appreciate everybody joining in today, and to Bob Wood, to Catherine Cuglietta, Bob Mack, Stephen Billings, Nancy Ely, Roy Belquist, in particular. Thank you so much for joining us this week, and we'll call that an episode then. But Roy, again, just just keep in mind that we're all here for you, and we're all
I
here
know.
to help you over these next few days for sure. And you are never too far from our thoughts and well wishes, my friend.
Thank you.
You're also never far from our jokes when we say things like, we hope there's enough terranium for your Dorfman.
Hey, and I get the joke, so it's appropriate.
That joke actually came from Kit Bevan via text earlier, and he said to wish you well as well.
Tell Kit thank you very much.
That's amazing. And always as well, keep in mind, and on that same note, just remember that Victor Bergman lived a long and healthy life with his artificial heart, right?
Yes, he did. He did.
He's talking to somebody now. We'll wrap this up, guys.
Now he's wondering, wait, you're not giving me an artificial one, are you? Wait, what's happening?
No, we're good. I'm actually getting my dinner order.
Oh, dinner.
Yeah, so she's being kind and she's waiting and being patient.
I bet it's yummy. Okay.
The food here is amazing. It really is good.
Oh.
So it is. I have no complaints.
You're saying that because you're in front of the person.
I am saying it because she's right there, but it also, honestly though, it really is good though. I honestly, the only thing is meatloaf was the, and this is like the ongoing joke with me because I hate meatloaf, and everybody I talk to says, oh, I make the world's best meatloaf. I hate meatloaf, and that was the special last night. Just between us, I didn't get the meatloaf. Anyway, thank you so much, everyone.
Good to see you.
Thank you. And no, thanks to everybody for tuning in and joining us for this very special episode. Bob, Catherine, all my best, and Roy.
Yep. We'll talk.
Everybody
soon.
have a fantastic week. Okay.
Yep.
Take care, everyone.
Until tomorrow.
Until tomorrow.
We'll see ya.
Live long and prosper. It's appropriate.